Ejide lórúkọ mi o. Muinatu Ejide lórúkọ bàbá sọ mí. Ejide Muinatu Marieba lórúkọ bàbá sọ mí. Èmi lọ́mọ Ìbàdàn ní Olúyọ̀lé o, ọmọ Àjẹ̀gbín jẹ́ karahun. Ìbàdàn mọ́jà báwọn bàbá wa ṣe ń kó wọn lẹ́rú lọ o. Ìbàdàn mẹ́rù lọ o, ẹ̀rọ mẹ́rù lọ o, abẹ́rù bẹ̀rẹ̀ káàkó. Ìbàdàn mẹ́sì ọgọ́, ebi ń pa mí mo lọ kó dà síná. Ọ̀rọ̀ jẹ́nà ọ̀rọ̀ yábù jẹ́ gẹ́gẹ́ bí iṣu Ìbàdàn lọ́mọ àwùmọ́ láìpò ní bàbá Ìbàdàn.
Ekabo, you're welcome. In this episode of the Fuji documentary, we turn our attention to the place of women in Fuji.
From artists, wives, lovers, daughters, and mothers, to patrons, fans, spiritual advisors, and everything in between.
Women's place in Fuji goes beyond the conventional frames of entertainment to include a wide range of identities that intersects deeply with virtually every component of African cultures.
Let's start with women as artists. Women have always been written out of the history of Fuji, despite the fact that they've been releasing albums since the 1970s when Fuji was created. And despite their critical roles in indigenous, local, artistic, and religious musical traditions.
What is true about Fuji is correct about other genres of music that became commercial after the 1960s.
So why was it difficult for the first generation of African women who ventured into commercial music in the immediate post-colonial era of the 1960s and 70s to become successful, powerful artists and historical actors like men?
Can be partly attributed to the fact that the colonial authorities were just blind to women's incredible economic autonomy and success, because it didn't fit their model of the male as the breadwinner and the wife as the domestic helpmeet.
They were bringing in not only their political system, but also their views on women, which was far more misogynist than anything ever experienced by Africa traditionally, because women in Europe were not allowed to own property, inherit property, write books, compose music. You know that women weren't even allowed, what was a taboo against white women. They couldn't even play in symphonic orchestras.
Whereas for the men, whether it was in music or in art, they were assumed to be the people who should be on these larger stages. And so the structures that were put in place was, in fact, those structures were already tailored to promote men.
Particularly as women continue to operate so much in the informal sector, whereas what the colonial authorities could see was the formal sector and the institutions for which people probably needed a formal education.
Individual bodies were gendered into male and female, and males were at the top of the hierarchy, and females were always secondary, marginalized, and unaccounted for.
You didn't promote their interests. You primarily thought about what are men doing, and therefore, how can we promote what men are doing?
Because in Western societies, women were nothing. They were secondary.
But I think there was another reason why women's artistic and creative potentials were not translated into commercial dominance. And that's that popular